we are confronted now with a global climate crisis. And the point of no return is no longer over the horizon. It is in sight and hurtling towards us.
Welcome back to Hardball. That was the United Nations General Secretary speaking ahead of a UN climate change conference that began today in Madrid, Spain. His dire warning follows the release of a UN report last week that indicated, quote, rapid, unprecedented cuts in greenhouse gas emissions offer the only hope of averting an ever-intensifying cascade of consequences. Well, here in the U.S., there's a new coalition of former presidents, military generals, and celebrities who will begin holding town hall meetings across the country urging Americans to combat climate change. The group's called World War Zero. And joining me right now is one of the founding members, former Secretary of State John Kerry. Senator, Mr. Secretary, why do you have let me just ask you the up question. How's it going in the argument about climate? Who's winning?
Well, Earth isn't winning, that's for sure, and that's the problem, Chris. Emissions are going to go up in major countries around the world. The United States emissions are rising. They weren't a few years ago. The European emissions are rising. China is rising. India is rising. No country on the planet that has a major obligation to try to get things done is getting it done. So this is an urgent moment, and that's why World War Zero, and I urge people to go to worldwarzero.com, there's only one way to solve the problem, and that's globally. The world has to be involved. It is a war now because there are people who have declared war on science and war on facts and war on the health and safety and welfare of their fellow citizens. People are dying in the United States today from mudslides, from fires, from floods. Amazing amount of storm damage. $265 billion spent to clean up after just 3 storms 2 years ago. So their facts speak to us loud and clear. What we're going to try to do is mobilize Americans, much as we mobilized many years ago when we passed the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water, and created the Environmental Protection Agency. People have to be involved. No one gets a free pass. Democracy only works when citizens take part in it, and we have to make this one of the primary issues which we're organizing around, Republican and Democrat alike.
How do you operate a bipartisan effort on a war to deal with the climate when you have the Republican Party completely hijacked by this president? You got some people like Kasich there, the former governor, recent governor of Ohio. You've got Schwarzenegger, the former governor. You've got some stars there on your group. But the Republican Party's 90% with Trump, who's 100% against climate concerns.
Well, we have
100%.
a thing called elections, Chris. We have elections in the United States. We have to create ultimately accountability because the American people mobilize and demand it. That we're not going to get involved in a specific election. We're not supporting one candidate over another. But we are going to be very clear about making climate change a primary climate crisis, really today, a primary issue that America has to confront along with the rest of the world. And people will make their own decisions about who's ready to move forward. If a party decides they want to stay on the sidelines, I suspect the American people are going to find a way to hold them accountable for that. But we're not trying to emphasize the differences here. We're trying to emphasize the common things that bring us together. We do have important Republicans who, like Chuck Hagel, who was Secretary of Defense, Bill Cohen, who was Secretary of Defense and Senator from Maine. We have Hank Paulson, who was the former Secretary of Treasury. These are smart people. These are people who've staked their lives on defending our country and on patriotism. And their sense of patriotism now is to try to come together, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, generation, across ideologies, to recognize this is a national security crisis for our country. It's a health crisis for our country. And in the solution, Chris, there are millions of jobs to be created. Building out an adequate energy grid for our nation, beginning to retrofit and put efficiencies into companies and appliances. There are enormous job benefits. I mean, the fastest growing job in America today already is, in fact, solar power technician. solar panel technician. The second fastest job is wind power, wind turbine technician. So there are many, many more of those jobs than there are people working in coal industry, for example. Now, we're not, trying to, what we want to do is organize around the best possibilities of the future. But one thing is clear, Chris, if we don't treat this like a war, if we don't organize ourselves much in the way that the professor at Yale, Professor Paul Kennedy, who's written a book called Engineers of Victory, which highlights the key decisions that were made in order to win World War II. It wasn't automatic that it was going to happen. And it's far from automatic that we're going to win this right now. But if we make key decisions about how to decarbonize electricity, how to build the infrastructure necessary for an electric fleet in America, electric vehicle fleet, how do we begin to change what's happening in either agriculture or industry, which is producing an enormous amount of the emissions. There are many, many things available to us as solutions to this. And moreover, if we invest the way America invested to go to the moon, to win the race that John Kennedy set us out on, if we were to begin to invest in the alternative possibilities of different fuels, whether it's hydrogen or fusion or something nobody's talked about yet, America has an extraordinary record of breaking through, of setting the pace, of being first, and that's what we have to do right now. But we don't have the leadership calling us to that challenge.
We'll be right back with Secretary Kerry to talk about everything else in the world, especially the 2020 race for president and the Democratic Party. We'll be right back.
You're watching MSNBC International. Wherever forces clash.
We've been hearing incoming rounds have been whistling past.
Wherever leaders assert their power.
The easy part is over. Now the hard part begins.
Our journalists will be there, bringing the world into focus.
Zuckerberg used the island's ongoing crisis to promote Facebook's virtual reality feature, displaying his cartoon body avatar in front of the battered infrastructure.
We're looking around and it feels like we're really here in Puerto Rico.
In a world of virtual reality and fake news and social networking done in quiet, lonely rooms, maybe we could all use a reminder there is no substitute for really talking with someone and really going somewhere and really doing something.
I talked to a lot of people, many of them fighting mad. It's a divided country, people ready to go toe-to-toe on each and every issue. And it's not going to change anytime soon. I like a political fight as much as anybody. But are we going to get to some decisions or just keep fighting?
It's not about cutting taxes. It's about reforming the system.
Right.
That's not what we're going to get.
This isn't tax reform. This is just a tax thing. Last summer in New York at the Economic Club, Donald Trump said that his tax plans are going to cause the economy to grow 4, 5, or 6%. I have a better chance of growing a full, thick afro than we have of getting to 4, 5, or 6%. So we just have to accept this is what it is. It's a deficit-financed tax cut. End of story.